Only in Kentucky can a single county claim the oldest festival in the Commonwealth and the site of an ancient burial mound so large that early settlers named their town after it. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today, I'm learning about Montgomery County. Montgomery County sits at a fascinating geological crossroads. To the west, you have the rolling fertile bluegrass, but to the east and south, the land starts to fight back. You hit the knobs, those rugged, dissected ridges that signal you're entering the Appalachian borderlands. The topography here is a roller coaster. The highest point, Westbrook Mountain, towers at over 1,400 feet, while the creeks down in the valleys sit 700 feet lower. Long before the first pioneer axe hit a tree here, this was a stronghold for the Adena culture. These people were not nomadic. They were a complex, stratified society that built a mixed economy of foraging and early agriculture, growing things like squash and native seeds. They left behind a massive ceremonial footprint in the form of monumental earthworks. The Gaitskill Mound is the most famous survivor, an elliptical giant that was once 100 feet long and 30 feet high. When researchers opened it up, they found these beautifully engraved sandstone tablets and copper beads that link this spot to a sophisticated trade network that spanned the continent 2,000 years ago. Even the county seat, Mount Sterling, takes its name from an ancient landmark. Explorers, hunters, and surveyors traveling along Old Harper's Trace spotted a 125-foot-high, tree-covered mound they called the Little Mountain, right where the intersection of Queen and Locust Streets is today. Tragically, in 1845, a developer decided the clay in that mound would make great bricks, so he leveled it to build a house. He dug away half the mound and found skeletons in a good state of preservation, including one with a string of shells around its neck. We lost a piece of ancient history that day, but the name Mount Sterling, a mix of that little mountain and the town of Stirling in Scotland, stuck forever. The first Anglo-American explorers like William Calk and Enoch Smith arrived in the spring of 1775. If you read William Calk's surviving journals, you get the gritty day-by-day account of life on the edge of the world. In 1776, they were clearing 5 or 6 acres of dense forest just to plant the county's very first crop of corn. Calk also found a vital water source they called Calk Spring, which became a magnet for future settlers. Of course, life on the frontier was vulnerable. Settlers lived in heavy fortified blockhouses like Morgan Station, built in 1789. It was there on April 1st, 1793 that the last major Native American raid in Kentucky's history occurred. A coalition of Cherokee and Shawnee warriors, led by a leader named Shoeboots, launched a surprise attack while the men were working in the fields. 12 people were killed and 19 women and children were taken captive. One was an adolescent girl named Clorinda Allington. Shoeboots believed he had saved her life during the raid and eventually married her. They had 3 children together and lived a prosperous life in Cherokee territory. Years later, Clorinda was allowed to visit her family in Kentucky, but her world had changed so much that she couldn't really fully go back. She ended up staying in Kentucky, though, and the state actually voted her a 3-year pension because her family was too poor to support her. On December 14th, 1796, the Kentucky legislature officially authorized Montgomery County, making it the 22nd county formed in the state. They named it for General Richard Montgomery, the Irish-born soldier who died in 1775 trying to capture Quebec City during the Revolutionary War. At its birth, the county was a gargantuan 2,500 square miles. It stretched all the way to the Virginia border. But as the population grew, the state started slicing it up like a birthday cake. They carved out 18 different counties from that original territory, places like Floyd, Clay, Bath, and Powell, eventually leaving Montgomery as the compact hub that it is today. When the Civil War arrived, Montgomery County found itself in the crosshairs. Because Mount Sterling is the gateway between the wealthy bluegrass and the rugged mountains, it was a vital strategic prize. The county was a house divided, like many places in Kentucky, literally 50-50 between Union and Confederate sympathizers. It wasn't simply about ideology, it was also about economy, because by 1860 the county had nearly 2,800 enslaved people, a massive capital investment that was directly at stake, if you can call it that. But the town changed hands constantly, and the occupation was brutal. In March of 1963, Confederate Colonel Leroy Kluk led a lightning raid into Mount Sterling, capturing 438 Union prisoners and hundreds of mules in just a few hours. But the biggest blow to the county's history happened in December of that year, when Confederate troops deliberately burned the courthouse to the ground. The reason for them doing that was because they wanted to destroy the tax records to stop the Union from collecting money, but they also incinerated a decade's worth of marriage licenses and property deeds, creating a genealogical void that still must frustrate families today. The violence peaked in June 1864 with the Battle of Mount Sterling. John Hunt Morgan, on his very last major raid into Kentucky, clashed with Union General Stephen Burbridge. The fighting was desperate, spilling from the town center into the surrounding farm area. The Union eventually won, but for decades afterward, farmers would plow up buried sabers, cannonballs, and artillery fragments in the field just outside the town. You can still visit Machpelah Cemetery and see the Confederate monument there. The post-war era wasn't much quieter. Reconstruction in Montgomery County was marked by deep tension. The emancipation of thousands of people upended the old farm system. Many former slaves left the rural farms to find safety in urban all-black communities, fleeing the violence of vigilante groups like the Regulators. At the same time, the Freedmen's Bureau was trying to build schools for black citizens, but they faced fierce, often violent resistance from locals. This era was personified by Senator Garrett Davis, a Mount Sterling attorney who was a staunch Unionist during the war but spent his post-war career fighting tooth and nail against the 13th Amendment and civil rights. But as the 1800s gave way to the 1900s, the county found a new king: burley tobacco. The geography of the knobs dictated how people farmed. Because the land was too steep and too rugged for heavy machinery, farmers relied on mules. They became the absolute backbone of the tobacco economy. Mount Sterling grew into a major trading hub, the 8th largest loose leaf market in Kentucky. You can still see the massive old sales warehouses like the Continental and the growers near the rail lines. During the winter auction season, the town was a frenzy of activity, with growers and corporate buyers filling the streets. The wealth from tobacco and the railroad boom completely changed the face of Mount Sterling. Between 1880 and 1940, the town saw an unprecedented building boom. Even the cemetery, Machpelah, became an artistic landmark with its elaborate obelisks and the famous bronze statue of a murdered lawyer, Richard Reed. But the world changed again in 2004 when the federal tobacco quota system ended. The old family farm model collapsed almost overnight. Montgomery County is resilient. They looked at their map, saw their proximity to I-64, and pivoted to advanced manufacturing. Today, instead of tobacco leaves, the county produces Hot Pockets. The Nestled plant here is a massive employer. The county has managed to diversify their economy so well that they now employ over 12,000 people and have one of the busiest regional airports in the state. But even with all the 21st century industry, the county's heartbeat is still found in October court days. This tradition is over 230 years old. It started in 1794 when the General Assembly required each county to meet once a month to conduct legal business. Everyone had to come to the town anyway. They started trading. Today, it's Kentucky's oldest running festival. Every October, 130,000 people flood the streets. If you spend any time in the hollers near Jeffersonville or Slate Creek, you'll hear the folklore that keeps the past alive. There are stories of the Gray Lady haunting the old buildings, and then there's the Barilla, a terrifying humanoid bear hybrid creature with glowing red eyes. It's been part of local legends since the 1940s. So whether it's the cryptids in the woods or the curse of Ann Mitchell Anderson, a tragic 19th century ghost story, Montgomery County seems to love its narratives. They sent its people to do big things too. There's James L. White, who grew up in Mount Sterling and went on to Hollywood to write the screenplay for the movie Ray. There's Nancy Green, born into slavery in Montgomery County, who became a global icon as the original Aunt Jemina. And then there's Ernie Fletcher, who served as governor of Kentucky. From the ancient earthworks of the Adena to the high-speed logistics of today, Montgomery County is a place where old becomes bold. It's a land that has been fought over, burned down, and rebuilt better every time. So whether you're catching a movie at the Judy Drive-In or wandering through the Gateway Regional Arts Center, you're standing in a place that has always been a gateway to something bigger. So that's Montgomery County. What I get wrong this time.